John Paulson is somebody who was seen as potentially a contender. We were talking about this just yesterday on the program, so I can share with you some of my insights that I have surrounding this. I suspect, just given everything that I've heard, that the job is now going to go to a Mr. Scott Bessent, who is also a hedge fund manager and has been very, very pro-Trump economic policy, coming out as late, as long ago as February of this past year, saying you should bet on Trump. There's going to be a lot of opportunity within the economy as a result of that. And so it was sort of between the two guys. And I suspect at this point, we're going to be seeing Scott Bessent there as Treasury Secretary. So pretty amazing stuff. We're going to have more on that as it comes out. We did learn of a few other things. I want to get to some of these other appointments because the governor of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee, we love Mike Huckabee. Do we not? Mike Huckabee is the best. And we love his daughter too. Sarah Huckabee was the best press person ever. All of these good things are happening right now as we learn about the dream team that's being assembled. Before I get to that, I want to just give a good little plug for our friends over at Balance of Nature. Balance of Nature is something that I take every day. I'm going to put it right in front so you can see it. Balance of Nature is, I take the fruits and veggies, and there's a lot going on right now. It's easy to get a cold. It's that kind of season. We've got Thanksgiving coming up. We had the election, of course. I was up all night here with you until 3 a.m. I promised I'd be here till the bitter end. I was. And we were calling it way ahead of AP and everyone else. I mean, we couldn't officially call it, but we were showing you what Polymarket was saying at the time. Anyway, it's easy to get a little bit under the weather, and I'm glad that I take my vitamins as a result of that. Balance in Nature is what I take. Fruits and veggies. They're wonderful. I mean that because, vitamin D is not easy to come by for somebody like me. Balanceinnature.com. You can get you can get 50% off. What am I saying? 50% off. This is the best offer I've ever had on my program. So I thank them for that. Go give them a ring at 1-800-246-8751, 1-800-246-8751, or just go to balanceinnature.com. Use code word Trish. Hey, free shipping too. I forgot to tell you that. 50% off and free shipping. You can't beat it. This is the dream come true for Washington, D.C., a real dream team in the works.
You work for me. I'm a taxpayer. You work for me.
Tom Homan is going to be leading the charge on the immigration front. I've known Tom many years. He's been on this program. He's been on my show at Fox over the years. Just a terrific guy, and he's not going to put up with any BS. He's the new border czar. We want to get into some of these appointments, but first, let me show you this.
First of all, your comments are disgusting. I've served my country.
I've served my country for 34 years.
I find your comments disgusting as well.
I've served my country for 34 years. And yes, I held a 5-year-old boy in my arms in back of that tractor trailer. I knelt down beside him and said a prayer for him because I knew what his last 30 minutes of his life were like. And I had a 5-year-old son at the time. What I've been trying to do my 34 years serving my nation is to save lives. So for you to sit there and insult my integrity and my love for my country and for children, that's why this whole thing needs to be fixed. And you're the member of Congress.
We agree on that.
Fix it.
We agree on that, but I disagree.
But I also disagree with your characterization of immigrants as criminality. People for 3 decades on this.
Gentlemen, time is.
Look, you want to know why there's 50,000 people in detention? You want to know why we have 1 million illegal entries in the United States? You want to know why we have these issues? Because you have failed to secure the border. You have failed to work with this president to close the 3 loopholes we've asked for 2 years to close. So if you want to know why this issue exists, you need to look in the mirror. You have failed American people for not securing the border and closing loopholes.
Mr. Homan, please respect the chair and the authority of the chair. The time of the gentleman has expired.
I've asked you politely to let me go beyond my time, and you let other people go beyond their time, but not to Tom Homan. He don't get me go beyond his time.
Mr. Homan, we have approved an agreement between the Republicans and the Democrats with the ranking member. We increased the time of one member of Congress who was interrupted by a protest. That is done with the approval of the ranking member. Please respect the chair's authority.
I respect the chair's authority, but the chair...
Mr. Homan!
You work for me. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a taxpayer. You work for me.
I love this.
So the recommendation of the men that you recommended family separation.
I recommended zero tolerance.
which includes family separation.
The same as is whenever a U.S. citizen parent gets arrested when they're with a child.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that father
Mr.
from his
Homan,
family.
with all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
When you're into the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum and go through the port of entry, do it the legal way. The Attorney General of the United States has made that clear.
So he means business. He's not messing around. I mean, it's setting the stage for something, shall we say, interesting, very, very interesting. This came up the other night with the Massachusetts governor who's ready to fire back.
If the Trump administration requests it, would the Massachusetts State Police assist in mass deportations?
No, absolutely not. But, you know, let me say this. I do think it's important that we all recognize that there's going to be a lot of pressure on states and state officials. And I can assure you, we're going to work really hard to deliver. Some realities also need to be, noted, and that is in 2016, we had a very different situation in the courts. And while I'm sure there may be litigation ahead, there's a lot of other ways that people are going to act and need to act for the sake of their states and their residents. There's regulatory authority and executive powers and the like. There's legislation also within our states. So I think that the key here is that every tool in the toolbox has got to be used to protect our citizens, to protect our residents, and protect our states, and certainly to hold the line on democracy and the rule of law as a basic principle, right?
Yeah. So it's setting the stage for something. I'm just going to warn you of that. This is the fear that people have. And when Letitia James is out there saying, we're going to go after this, we're going to go after it, you get a Massachusetts governor, you get a New Jersey governor, you get a New York governor, everybody's sort of bracing themselves for whatever Donald Trump might do, because part of that, yes, absolutely does mean clamping down on the illegal immigration process that has been, frankly, so disastrous for our economy. I mean, think about it. New York City offering $350 a week for culturally appropriate food. I mean, last I checked, you come here, you come anywhere, right? You're starving, you're hungry, you don't have a job, etc. You'll take whatever you get. Thank you very much. What? You're not going to eat bread? You're not going to eat white bread because it's not culturally appropriate? I am sorry. I'm not buying that. People got crazy, and now things are coming back to normal as they need to be. As Democrats, it's for your own good. Anyway, here's another priceless moment from Tom Homan.
One estimate that says it would cost $88 billion to deport 1 million people a year.
I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Is that what American taxpayers should expect?
What price do you put on national security? Is it worth it?
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
I mean, it's chilling what he just said. You realize that when he says, yes, families can be deported together, what he is saying is that U.S. citizens can be deported. What he is saying is if the parent is undocumented and they have U.S. citizen children or U.S. citizen spouse, or and you don't want to separate them, then let's deport the U.S. citizens. Look, Donald Trump won the electoral vote. He won. He's going to win the House. He won the Senate. For all effects and purposes, he's got the Supreme Court. They've given him immunity. This is what the country voted for. This is, a lot of people thought that when he talked about mass deportations, he wasn't being serious. I don't know how many times he had to say it for people to realize he was being serious. Well, if you thought he wasn't being serious, the appointment of Tom Homan today as border czar, and he will be in charge of a mass deportation program, the largest the country has ever seen, they say. And now Stephen Miller, as deputy chief of staff, should let you know that he was absolutely serious.
Yeah, he was serious. And guess what? Americans overwhelmingly voted for this, despite the constant barrage of noise from the mainstream media every single day, guess what? They still went with it. They still went with it. Looks like we're getting some news in, about Judge Merchan. I want to see if we can get the latest on this for you, ladies and gentlemen, because as I said, this was going to be reported today, and it's happening here in real time. Judge Merchan coming out with perhaps what Judge Merchan agreeing to more delay. Okay, so he's agreeing to another delay here in the Trump hush money case. So I'm just going to say this, as I said before, it's over. Like, it really, really is over. Judge Merchan, you can agree to more delays. You can do whatever you want here, but the reality is this. It's done. He is now the president of the United States of America. Kayleigh McEnany has a degree in law from Harvard University, back when Harvard was actually a good place to go. And she worked for the president. I want to go to her comments on this, just breaking.
Lawfare failed by 75 million plus votes, and that total is going up by the hour as we continue to count votes. 75 million. President Trump got more votes in raw vote totals than any Republican president ever. That's a fact. So lawfare failed. You guys tried that. This case was unprecedented. The New York Times, no fan of this man. The New York Times, biased New York Times. I want to tell you what they said. A New York Times review and interviews with election law experts strongly suggests New York state prosecutors have never before filed an election law case involving a federal campaign. And they go on. This was unprecedented. This should have been dismissed. Judge Merchan, why didn't you dismiss this days ago? This case should have never been brought. It should have been dismissed on summary judgment after it was brought. This is lawfare 2.0. And Judge Merchan needs to take a hike because the American people spoke. He needs to honor that, and we need to move forward as a country.
She's right. Judge Merchan does need to take a hike. Judge Merchan should not have been deciding this case. To begin with, Judge Merchan's daughter profits off of every little wrinkle in this because what does the Democrat Party do? They raise money off of all of the little drips and drabs coming out of the courtroom. Giving them hope, giving hope to the minions, because ratings are down 51% over at MSNBC. So his daughter is making more money on this being postponed now. Today, we have learned that they are going to postpone for a few more days. This is getting ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. The Supreme Court has already ruled on this. They really do, I think, want to create a crazy environment in which you have this lawlessness, and that somehow you're going to get yourself closer and closer to some kind of civil war type thing. Well, listen, even New York City, Letitia, Kathy Hochul, the mayor, who's in all kinds of trouble, and you want to replace Letitia with, we get it. The mayor has made the decision they can't afford these $350 certificates. I almost said gift certificates. The cards, the ATM cards that you can go use at the grocery store for culturally appropriate food.
News, the mayor just announced that the city will no longer issue vouchers to migrants to pay for food, ending a controversial program that had repeatedly come under attack by conservatives and others.
This pilot program in New York City, drenched in both humanity and controversy, distributed debit cards to migrant families staying in city-funded hotels and allowing them to buy their own food. Eyewitness News reporter Josh Einiger following the breaking news for us. Josh?
Well, Bill, it's a program that, as you say, generated plenty of controversy, but now its absence may raise even more questions. The so-called Immediate Response Cards pilot program was designed to help feed migrant families who'd found themselves in New York with no way to afford food. The one-year contract provided what the city described as culturally relevant food to 2,600 migrant families, allowing them to basically buy what they wanted. A family of four with two kids under 5 got about $350 per week to cover food in a program the city said would actually save taxpayers millions a year. It also reduced food waste. You may remember the food the city had been providing in migrant shelters was seen as not culturally sensitive to the needs of some migrant groups, and it ended up just going to waste. For more than a year, the city was groaning under the weight of more than 200,000 asylum seekers. Officials say the migrant population has actually reduced lately. In fact, a massive shelter on Roosevelt Island is in the process of closing. In the meantime, Mayor Adams spoke on the phone yesterday with President-elect Donald Trump, who had vowed during his campaign to mass deport migrants. Aside from congratulating him on his win, though, Adams today would not say what they discussed.
Administration to fix this disaster.
Okay, we're going to go to that in a second. But again, more breaking news. We're a little disjointed. We get so much happening. Bear with me. The dream team being assembled. Breaking news. Alina Habba is said to be the frontrunner for press secretary in the Trump administration. She's a fighter. She was on the front lines of that lawfare warfare, shall we say.
Good afternoon.
Remember?
I've done this one too many times. Actually, too many times for the last 3.5 years while President Trump has been trying to fight to get this country back. And I want to speak to the American women, and I want to speak to the people that need to get out and vote on November 5th. I have sat with President Trump for years now, while he has been targeted with lies and with judges, AGs, and DAs who have specifically run in this city and others on getting Trump. The Trump administration will fix this problem. We will stop Kamala Harris's regime, because she was there, let's not forget that, and she still is, of using officials from the White House, putting them in DA's offices, in AG's offices, and attacking your political opponent. And this country deserves better than this. We do. We should not be sitting here at a press conference talking about this. We did this in 2016, and every woman had no reports. They come out when it's election time. And as a woman who has stood with President...
Okay, Alina Habba, you saw that was her fighting back against the abortion thing. So it's rumored that she may be in line there for press secretary. This is a great clip of her as well. She's a fighter.
To hire a lawyer who can stand up and say something when they see something wrong. But I was told to sit down today. I was yelled at. And I've had a judge who is unhinged slamming a table. Let me be very clear. I don't tolerate that in my life. I'm not going to tolerate it here. And you know what? You shouldn't either.
So, Alina Habba, possibly for press secretary. The dream team is coming together, led by Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio expected to be named Secretary of State. It's a big deal. We talked about Marco Rubio yesterday and on Friday. I wondered if there might be an impression that, well, number one, you need to keep him because he's from Florida, and that's important. They're like taking everybody from Florida. Think about it. Mike Waltz, Rick Scott, possibly. Of course, he's going to stay in the Senate, potentially there as majority leader of the Senate. But Marco Rubio, he's a big asset to Florida, as the senator of Florida. He's now expected to be Secretary of State. There are some that have some worries about, neocon tendencies, but he's also somewhat practical, and he's, as of late, voiced some concerns about the money we're throwing at Ukraine. He's voiced concerns about where we are all over the world in terms of being more strategic about what we do. So this would be hopefully very much in line with Donald Trump's thinking. Marco Rubio of Florida, expected to be named as Secretary of State. Lee Zeldin getting the appointment there at EPA. This is kind of funny because EPA is going to be like, anymore. And this is what Lee's job is going to be, right? To basically cut it down and cut it down and cut it down so you can have this energy renaissance that we need. By the way, we need it for AI. We need it for all the GPUs that have to get processed. We need it for digital currency, Bitcoin, cryptos, which have been flying. You got Kristi Noem. Look at this. Kristi Noem as Homeland Security Secretary. So she's going to be working very closely with Tom Homan and also Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller coming in as a deputy chief of staff there. He's going to be running policy for the White House. Brilliant guy. He gets a really bad rap because people just look at him and he's so serious and he looks so serious. And so people in the mainstream media and those lefties over at Daily Beast, every time I'd have him on, like it would just be some kind of ruckus. But he is one smart dude. I'm telling you, Stephen Miller is a good asset to Donald Trump. Watch.
Invasion of our southern border.
Well, as I say sometimes, the immigration issue is extremely simple. The policies involved in fixing it are very complicated. The simple part is seal the border, deport all the illegals. Now, that's the short answer, right? You get in, you have two policy objectives that you proceed with utter determination on. Seal the border, no illegals in, Everyone here goes out. That's very straightforward. In terms of the policy sets to accomplish this, as President Trump showed in his first term, it's a series of interlocking domestic and foreign policies to accomplish this goal. In no particular order, just to rattle off a few fast, you have your Safe Third agreements, you have Remain in Mexico, finish the wall, you have robust prosecutions of illegal aliens, you do interior repatriation flights to Mexico and not back to the north of Mexico. It's very important. You re-implement Title 42. You have several muscular 212Fs. That's the travel ban authority. We did a few of those in the Trump administration. You would bring those back and add new ones on top of that. You would establish large-scale staging grounds for removal flights. So you grab illegal immigrants and then you move them to the staging grounds, and that's where the planes are waiting for federal law enforcement to then move those illegals home. You deputize the National Guard to carry out immigration enforcement. And then you also deploy the military to the southern border, not just with a mission to observe, but with an impedance and denial mission. In other words, you reassert the fundamental constitutional principle that you don't have a right to enter into our sovereign territory, to even request the asylum claim. The military has the right to establish a fortress position on the border and to say no one can cross here at all. Yes.
So, wow, you got a lot of really smart people, and this is all getting assembled in real time. Another one I want to tell you about, Dan Bongino, my friend Dan. I can't say enough good stuff about this guy. He's just a really, really wonderful dude. Let me make this even bigger so you can see his picture here. Dan Bongino, who's been enormously loyal to the president from the get-go. Dan, Drew, you've heard me talk about Drew on this show, who has been one of our wonderful producers on the team, has known him forever, back to the days when he was first running for Congress. And Dan started this podcast. And before you knew it, it totally took off. We had him as a guest often on my programs over on Fox. And he then went on to host his own show at Fox. And he has just done a phenomenal job, like a lot of us with Fox. He ran into a few little things on the way to the forum, but he's no longer there. He's on his podcast. I can only tell you, though, that my biggest regret, if he were to pick Dan, is just, I love his show. I absolutely, positively love his show. The other major contender for Secret Service Director includes Sean Curran. This is per Politico. So you're looking at a picture there of Dan with the president, and then the president in that iconic photo where he stood up and said, "Fight," to everyone. And you know what? They listened, because now we've got a mandate unlike anything the Republican Party has seen probably since 1984.
Good afternoon. I've done this one too many times.
Let's go to a quick commercial break. I want to give a plug for 76 Research as we prepare to talk about some of the filings, the FEC filings that have come into question regarding Kamala Harris and her campaign. To go over to 76 Research, our financial website, where you can get a whole lot of information about financial markets and what stocks we like to invest in. Lots of different content there. Just a quick look at our top financial pick, up 24%, utility up 24%, real estate up 23%. You get the picture. It's important to put yourself and your financial future first. You can do that at 76 Research, just $1. It costs just $1 with code word dollar, $1 a month for the first 2 months. 76research.com. I'll see you there. Wow. Okay, so market's on fire. Little bit of a stumbling block today, but let me tell you, good stuff ahead. So make sure you go over there. In all seriousness, I want you to be part of this. There's a MAGA boom on the way. I really fundamentally believe that. I tend to be right on these things over a long period of time. I tend to have a very good macro approach.